After the end of World War II, it turned out that many treasures looted by the Nazis had disappeared without a trace. We are talking about treasures whose value amounts to tens, if not hundreds of billions of dollars. And in many cases it was never possible to find out where the looted valuables went. Let's look at the most famous similar cases of treasure disappearance. From the very beginning of World War II, the Nazis took all the gold from the national and treasuries of the captured countries. Later, the treasury of the Third Reich began to be replenished with the personal property of citizens in the occupied territories. Imagine that in Auschwitz alone, up to 11 kilograms of gold were melted down from prisoners' dental crowns, jewelry, and watches per day. And the count of such gold reserves of the Nazis alone, without taking into account other valuables, amounted to hundreds of tons. But by 1943, Martin Bormann began to prepare reserve airfields in case of loss in the war. He organized a secret operation, Eagle's Flight, to remove looted valuables from Germany. Considering that during the Second World War, Argentina's gold reserves increased from 346 tons of gold to almost 1,200, and Brazil's from 50 to 346 tons. It is not difficult to understand where the Nazis took huge reserves of valuables. But part of the treasure remained in Europe. Bormann personally controlled more than 100 hiding places on the territory of the Third Reich. One of these hiding places was Neuschwanstein Castle in the Bavarian Alps. The Nazis kept and locked away the valuables they took from France, and also kept a strategic reserve of gold there, which is now valued at billions of dollars. At the end of the war, the SS planned to blow up the castle with all its valuables, but the Allies managed to foil this plan. But if almost all the looted art objects remained in the castle, and by the way they were taken out of the castle for 6 whole weeks, then the gold disappeared without a trace. As it turned out, the gold reserves were taken out of the castle at the end of April 1945, just a couple of weeks before the end of the war. It is clear that the Nazis were physically unable to transport such volumes of gold abroad at that time. It is quite possible that the Nazis hid the gold in a more secret cache in the vicinity of the castle, but where this cache is and where this gold went is still a mystery. But in the history of World War II there were, and where there were, mysterious cases of the disappearance of countless treasures. One of these treasures was Breslau gold. The Breslau gold is said to be the treasure of several generations of the population of Lower Silesia, as well as part of the looted treasures of other occupied lands, which were collected for storage in bunkers in the city of Breslau, today's Polish city of Wrocław. Most of these treasures have not yet been found. Surprisingly, after the war there was not a single serious witness left who could definitely say what happened to this gold. At the end of the war in 1944, the Germans obviously thought about the future fate of these treasures. No matter what, they had to be hidden from the Allied forces. And this is what we managed to find out from the testimony of numerous witnesses. It is known that local authorities organized several large military factories in the territory of Lower Silesia, about which the darkest rumors are still circulating. One of these enterprises was located in the city of Lechowicz. During the war, there was a large military plant in Lechowicz, and a special railway line was built to it. And the most interesting thing is that part of the production capacity was located underground. In these places, many old mining workings were preserved. The old adits under the local Social Security mountain were expanded, concreted, and prepared to receive valuable cargo. Moreover, a tunnel mining scheme was also developed. And on November 7, 1944, a train filled to the brim with treasures, gold bars, jewelry, and works of art arrived at the territory of the plant in Lechowicz. In 24 hours, a large group of prisoners from concentration camps laid 400 meters of rail track leading into the depths of the mountain. The train slowly drove into a wide adit and disappeared from sight. Immediately after him, the temporary rails were dismantled. The entrance to the tunnels was blown up and all traces of it were covered. And in the end, all the prisoners who worked on the construction and dismantling of the cableway were shot. But why has no gold been found yet? During the study, experts came to a number of general conclusions. Under the Social Security Mountain there is obviously an underground facility, probably of a production nature. Traces of the once built drainage system are still well preserved here. This system could refer to some kind of complex that does not exist outside the mountain, and therefore it must be located inside. In 1998, an expedition working on Sobes Mountain explored its depths with ground-penetrating radar and other high-tech devices. The final stage was drilling. During drilling, in places where, according to the testimony of witnesses and the results of instrumental studies, there could be buried entrances, the drill, in addition to rocky soil, lifted bitumen. At one point, the drill encountered such resistance that the land on which the people were standing began to rise in price. This situation was repeated several times. As a result, the expedition was able to confirm the existence of a certain underground complex under the mountain. But the main problem is to find the entrance to the mine, which was blocked by an explosion. Search teams have repeatedly combed the area, but to no avail. And relatively recently, a group of enthusiasts made a statement that they had found the desired entrance to the mine, and solving the mystery of Breslau's gold was only a matter of time. But for some reason this topic has not been continued recently, and there are no more statements from enthusiasts. And it is still not clear what is happening. Well, we'll wait. The name of the Japanese general, Tomoyuki Yamashita, has been firmly associated with the mysterious treasure since World War II. A huge flow of treasures looted by the Spaniards from Buddhist monasteries, trading offices, banks in Southeast Asia, and the treasures of local rulers flocked to the basements of Fort Santiago in the Philippines, where General Yamashita's headquarters was located. At the end of the war, Yamashita was the commander of the imperial forces in the Philippines, and was particularly responsible for transporting valuables from the Philippines to Japan. And so, at the end of the war, the Americans, with the support of local partisans, suddenly landed in the Philippines, and quickly moved towards Fort Santiago. It was no longer possible to evacuate the treasures, and Yamashita ordered to hide the valuables looted from the occupied territories, according to independent estimates, worth up to $100 billion. Moreover, the treasures were hidden in as many as 170 different places. Only now a problem arose. Not a single enthusiast has yet been able to officially discover any of these treasures. There are several versions of what happened to the treasures. Firstly, they could still try to bring the treasures to Japan, and at some point the carrier ship sank during the bombing. Secondly, some skeptics believe that most of the treasures were discovered by the U.S. military and secretly taken abroad. Thirdly, the widow of the former president of the Philippines Imelda Marcos made a sensational confession. Allegedly, during his reign, her husband managed to find a significant part of the treasures and secretly take them abroad, where he actually had an account worth several $billion. But the current Philippine authorities have long accused the former president of massive government embezzlement, and believe that the widow is simply trying to clear the name of her husband. In any case, the mystery of General Yamashita's treasure has not yet been solved. The following legendary treasure is called Rommel's gold. In the first months of 1943, German and Italian divisions in northern Africa were forced to retreat to Tunisia under Allied attacks, and General Rommel was urgently sent there. 2 months later, on May 13, 1943, the Afrika Corps of 200,000 people was completely surrounded and surrendered to the authorities of General Montgomery. It was then that the legend Rommel's gold was born. We are talking about several boxes filled with gold bars that were stored in the African building. There are several versions of this legend. The first version claims that the Germans, under pressure from the Allies, tried to evacuate the stolen goods from Africa. But they didn't have time, and the concealers were buried somewhere in the Tunisian desert by a group of German soldiers, and they still lie there. According to another, more popular version, Rommel's treasures were taken out of Africa on the eve of the complete defeat of the African Corps, but the ship on board, which contained metal boxes with gold, was sunk by British aircraft. Well, the most popular version says that the SS transported these boxes to an underwater cave, somewhere off the Vostokny coast in Corsica. The main and, perhaps, the only source of information about Rommel's gold was a certain Peter Flagg, a former SS Feldwebel, who said that he served at that time as a diver at a military base in Corsica. Flagg claimed that he, as a diver, was tasked with hiding several sealed boxes in one of the underwater caves. Flagg allegedly did not know what was contained in these boxes. However, this story apparently interested the former diver greatly. Since in 1948, he had recently been released from a prisoner of war camp, completely unexpectedly showed up in Corsica, and with the cooperation of the French authorities, he tried for a long time to find the treasure. He failed. Flagg was accused of fraud and sent to prison for 2 months. Only after leaving prison, this only witness disappeared without a trace. According to the most popular version, upon leaving prison, Flagg was allegedly kidnapped by the Italian mafia, who tried to get information about treasures from him. Endless attempts to find Rommel's gold have so far led to nothing. Apparently, over the past decades, the sea has worked a lot to reliably cover the steel boxes with treasures. The Third Reich was interested not only in gold jewelry, but also in works of art. The Nazis deliberately plundered art galleries, museums, and private collections of the occupied countries and took the looted valuables to Germany. And, perhaps, the most famous work of art that has not been found to this day was the Amber Room. On September 17, 1941, German troops entered the city of Pushkin. The Catherine Palace, in which the Amber Room was kept, was destroyed and looted. The Amber Room itself was of particular interest to the Third Reich. The room was dismantled, packed, and sent on 27 trucks to the Severnaya station, from where it was transported to Königsberg, the future Kaliningrad. There it was kept until 1944, when the Soviet army entered East Prussia. But after the storming of Königsberg by Soviet troops in April 1945, the Amber Room disappeared without a trace. Her further fate still remains a mystery. According to one version, it could have burned down during the bombing. According to another, it is still hidden somewhere in the Kaliningrad region. According to the third, the room, along with the gold of the Third Reich, was transported to South America. If you liked the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.